All right, kids, a few years ago, a girl was picked up from the mall by her babysitter. That girl began to cry once she got in the car because one little brat said a bathing suit made her look too fat and too flat. The girl had been shopping at Victoria's Secret for her first co-ed pool party, and her babysitter just so happened to be a singer-songwriter who will go on to write a song about this incident, exposing something or somebody in the process. That was Jax with Victoria's Secret. The song went viral in the summer of 2022, hit the Billboard charts, and got a response from Victoria's Secret. As CEO of Victoria's Secret and Pink, I can wholeheartedly say that we are all committed to building a community where everyone feels seen and respected, said Amy Houck. Before the company brought back the Victoria's Secret fashion show, along with the angels and their unrealistic body image. So there's that. I bring this up for 3 reasons. 1, Jax said her intention was never to take down a brand. 2, she admitted to having not only body issues when she was younger, but eating problems that companies like Victoria's Secret contributed to. And 3, Victoria's Secret didn't sue her. Keep that in mind because that old man who lives in Ohio can't be taken down, evidently. And before I continue, here's a disclaimer for the rest of the video. Let's get started. This is Leslie Wexner, and to non-Ohioans, congrats to them for that, they're barely aware of who he is. I mean, living here, I know him for more than his brands. I also know he takes no L's. L brands Wiggins! You got him with the execution. Whew. They're going to appreciate the efforts. That's how you get them to forget about that Hulu documentary connected.
Let me begin with Les and just talk about where did you get this idea?
I think the first purchase of land was 30 or 40 acres.
L brands. Today we're going to talk about the longest running CEO of a Fortune 500 company, the richest man in Ohio, who has the biggest house in the state, built a country club, a mall, and a highway to get him to the airport or downtown. Or did I just make up the original purpose of 670? And Jeffrey Epstein saw and touched all that, having or being Wexner's power of attorney.
It should be recorded that you had a lot of people that cared, fussing about, shadow lines and coursing of bricks and mailboxes and what should be the diameter of the trees that we're planting.
So how did Les Wexner go from cultivating a community with care and consideration and attention to detail to him not knowing what his financial manager of 20 years was doing? I'm making everybody honorary natives of Columbus, not New Albany. They can't afford to live there. See what I see. Sure, Wexner's name is on a hospital around here and an art museum that I worked at in college, but also local police reports. Be one of us, and George Santos, apparently. He also wants to know, why does no one ever talk about the one true person who enabled Jeffrey Epstein, Les Wexner? And he knows a thing or 3 about trying to conceal who they really are. And are we willing to accept that the Merlin of the mall was, according to him, being taken advantage of by someone who is so depraved? He admitted that it's something he's embarrassed he's even close to. Is that the end of it?
Everyone has to feel enormous regret for the advantage that was taken of so many young women. And that's just unexplainable, abhorrent behavior, and clearly is something we all would condemn.
Leslie Herbert Wexner was born in Dayton, Ohio in 1937 and raised in Bexley, where he graduated from high school. He is an alum of The Ohio State University, and I was going to say that he took over his family's clothing and apparel business in his 20s, but they closed down their store to join his. Prior to Bath & Body Works, Abercrombie & Fitch, Lane Bryant, Learn New York, and so on, there was The Limited, which he founded in the 60s. 6 years after its opening, The Limited went public, and it's one of many successes that led to Wexner being the businessman he set out to be. Contrary to popular belief, Les Wexner did not invent Victoria's Secret. He made it what it is. The same can be said about New Albany, Ohio, by the way. Wexner bought Vicky's from Roy Raymond for around $1 million in the early 80s. By 1992, it was worth an estimated $1 billion. And you should know that Raymond was skeptical of Wexner. When I met him, it was as if he met the devil. Those are Wexner's words. Also, there is a Victoria, a fictional character that Les invented as a backstory for the brand. And then, as the Bachelor Billionaire, Les's dealings took him back and forth to New York, where he met Jeffrey Epstein, who used to teach at the Dalton School in Manhattan, where Donald Barr served as headmaster from 1964 to 1974. Donald being the father of Bill Barr, Trump's former U.S. Attorney General. And I don't want to make this about the current president, but I could. Although Epstein began teaching math and science at Dalton 3 months after Donald Barr left, and sometime after dropping out of college. And yes, the sci-fi novel written by Donald Barr about people being trafficked for space sex is a coincidence. Speaking of weird,
in 1989, Wexner asked Harold Levin to meet with a young financier named Jeffrey Epstein on his next trip to New York. Levin agreed, but quickly identified Epstein as a fraud. Levin told Vanity Fair, Epstein was trying to explain a currency trade he wanted to do. I have an MBA from Ohio State, and I didn't understand a word the man said.
Harold Levin added that Epstein didn't even have a computer on his desk. Levin quit his job, and Wexner was the primary client of Epstein. Could have been his only client. Now, again, while I'm not going to focus on Trump, him and Elon Musk are the reasons why Epstein has been in the news a lot more lately. But whenever Donald is making the Epstein saga worse for himself every single time he talks or posts something on it, it gives me an opportunity to find another link to Wexner hiding in plain sight.
I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff. It's sordid, but it's boring. And I don't understand why it keeps going. I think really only pretty bad people, including fake news, want to keep something like that going.
Standing beside Trump and laughing because this topic in particular is funny to the people who currently hold enough power to do something about it, the GOP, here is a tweet from the Republican House Judiciary featuring a link that leads to its own base getting rickrolled. Anyways, Howard Lutnick, Jeffrey Epstein's longtime neighbor who bought his townhome in Manhattan from a trust controlled by Epstein and Les Wexner. Lutnick bought his townhouse on East 71st Street in 1998. Epstein bought his townhouse next door from Wexner for on the house. He also got a private jet from Wexner at a discount, which became the infamous Lolita Express. It was said that executives of L Brands, which Les founded, reported to Wexner in the mid-1990s that Epstein was posing as a Victoria's Secret recruiter in order to gain access to the models. And you know what? I think I found audio of some of those encounters.
You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the you can do anything.
I'm not going to make this about Trump. Wexner waved away accusations that he didn't take action as if he was not made aware of what was alleged when Epstein was abusing his power as a not paid non-employee of Victoria's Secret. But you better believe Jeffrey Epstein owned at least 2 properties in New Albany. One was a gift. The second one was a little over a half-mile away from Wexner's mansion that Epstein bought for $3.5 million. Maria Farmer, 26 years old at the time, said that she was invited to Epstein's home in the summer of 1996 to work on an art project. When she tried to run away from the home after being assaulted by Epstein and his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, Farmer said security guards from Wexner's team refused to let her leave for around 12 hours. Farmer agreed to dismiss the lawsuit in 2021 after Epstein's estate, he was dead by then, made her an offer through the Epstein Victims Compensation Program, according to federal court documents. Oh yeah, there's a fund. And Maxwell is in prison for trafficking underage girls to nobody. When Farmer returned to New York from Ohio, she said she filed a police report about her alleged assault. She said officers at that precinct encouraged her to speak to the FBI, which she says she did. No one appeared to act on her report, she says, until the FBI knocked on her door in 2006 to interview her about Epstein. That per NBC4. To this point, I can't imagine what Jeffrey Epstein had on Les Wexner. Wexner couldn't have been swayed by Epstein's charisma or anything like that. And by all accounts and stories and details and reports, Ghislaine Maxwell was the one who had this swag that was described as posh with her accent and the way she carried herself. And real quick, picture someone who finds an excuse to not put the Epstein list out there. What do they look like?
I talked to President Trump man to man, eye to eye, on St. Patrick's Day about this and the Kennedy files and the King files. It was all one conversation. And he said, and I agree, there are a lot of names associated with Epstein that had nothing to do with Epstein's conduct. They maybe had lunch with him or maybe had some correspondence for one thing or another. If that name gets out, those people are destroyed.
Hey, that last guy might have gotten fired once upon a time due to misogyny and sexism. So Trump is trying to protect people. Since when? E. Jean Carroll took Donald Trump to trial, and it's not like he kept it kosher. He says she wasn't his type, even though he thought she looked like his ex-wife Marla. His words, not mine. Whatever. The internet is finding ways to make it easier to access the files. For example, releasing the Epstein list on the Jumbotron at a Coldplay concert. And I'm an Android user, but they should send the Epstein list to everyone's phones like that U2 album, so we can hear from the Alicia Ardens of the world. Alicia Arden is an actor who accused Epstein of SA. She spoke to Inside Edition about her experience in 2019 and spoke again during a press conference the week when Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested in the summer of 2020. Arden says she was SA'd by Epstein at Shutters on the Beach Hotel in Santa Monica, California in 1997 when she was 28 and an aspiring model. She added that she filed a police report with a precinct in Santa Monica, but she never heard back from a detective or a prosecutor. And if I'm not mistaken, the first federal investigation into Jeffrey Epstein was launched under the George W. Bush administration. Closed it with no charges or convictions. And another federal investigation was launched in July of 2019 under Trump, after Epstein was arrested on federal sex trafficking charges. Epstein died one way or another in August 2019 while Trump was still in office. It's not as simple as that. More context is needed due to how complex this subject is. But the GOP has been involved. Plus, you know who is not on the Epstein list? Undocumented immigrants. With that said, I don't think Republicans actually care about Jeffrey Epstein or his victims.
The Republican Party has protected child predators for years in Trump's orbit and beyond. Roy Moore, Republican from Alabama, former DA, assaulted minors. Ray Holmberg, North Dakota state senator, pled guilty to paying for sex with male minors and distributing child porn. 45 years in jail. Ruben Verestegi, RNC staffer who got 12 years for child abuse material. George Nader, former Trump donor, 10 years in prison. Robert Morris, Trump's spiritual advisor who a 12-year-old girl. And oh yeah, Matt Gaetz.
Okay, look, I was going to steer clear of partisanship this episode. After all, Les Wexner isn't the most political person out there, at least not in the ways one would think. He was a Republican. He hosted a fundraiser for Mitt Romney in 2012 and donated to his super PAC. Wexner also donated to the super PAC of Jeb Bush's presidential campaign in 2016. He may claim to be independent sometime after that. Wouldn't surprise me if he did some Lex Luthor stuff behind the scenes either way. Even with that, doing homework for this thing, I came across so many pictures of Epstein with so many people on the right and the left, the center. The point is, there are far less photos of Epstein with Wexner, yet there are far more connections between the two of them than with almost anyone other than Ghislaine Maxwell. So why bring party affiliation into it? Well, remember how we got here.
But a lot of big people went to that island.
But fortunately, I was not one of them.
So if you're able to, you'll be...
Yeah, I'd certainly take a look at it. But yeah, I'd be inclined to do the Epstein. I'd have no problem with it.
How is it that my father can be convicted of 34 crimes, but no one on Epstein's list has even been brought to light? I'm trying to figure out how that's possible, right? It's almost like they're trying to protect those pedophiles for some reason. I can't imagine why, right?
You know, I think part of why Kamala's getting so much support is that if Trump wins, that Epstein client list is going to become public.
Yes.
And some of those billionaires behind Kamala are terrified of that outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. That last guy may have gotten fired once upon a time due to misogyny and sexism. A political party campaigned on the Jeffrey Epstein files, pretending like at 45-47-1, the Epstein client list would be made public and pinning its privacy on the other side of the aisle. I guess the punchline is because Bill Clinton has ties to Epstein? But come on. It shouldn't take a leftist progressive to say that politicians and pundits, ambassadors and actors, royals or regular folks don't want their people implicated with the terms flight logs or island at this point, let alone the real thing. And all of them, no matter their politics, should be put in prison if they did you know what with you know who. When Elon Musk dropped the really big bomb that President Donald Trump is in the Epstein files, saying that is the real reason they have not been made public, before telling DJT to have a nice day, then regretting some of his posts about him for going too far, I didn't think it would make right-wing influencers change their minds about seeking justice, but here we are, yet some narratives remain.
The president has decided that's no longer important. So why we can just leave us alone so we can make our money? A little bit of market manipulation, a little bit of bigotry. Can't we just hate women in peace? Why y'all keep talking about this?
I was hired to lead Jeffrey Epstein's defense as his criminal lawyer 9 days before he died. He sought my advice for months before that. I can say authoritatively, unequivocally, and definitively that he had no information to hurt President Trump. I specifically asked him. Republican lawmakers blocked the move that could have forced President Donald Trump's administration to release the files on Jeffrey Epstein's death and investigation. I heard that as I was writing this episode, and who knows what's going to come out while I'm editing this thing. I did catch that the Wall Street Journal published this exclusive article. For Jeffrey Epstein's 50th birthday, friends created a book of Bawdy letters. One was from Trump. Another, I might add, was from Alan Dershowitz, Trump's and Epstein's former attorney. Donald was trying to block the article from seeing the light of day, probably because he didn't want the world to know that he typed words on paper, then framed them in the outline of a naked woman's body that he drew by hand, making small arcs to form women's breasts, and with his signature below her waist representing public hair. That per the Wall Street Journal, of course. Trump said he would sue them. And yeah, it's well worth mentioning that our president supposedly ended his letter years ago with, "Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret," whatever that means. Wexner wrote, "I wanted to get you what you want, so here it is." And after the text was a line drawing of what appeared to be a woman's breast. I'm allowing myself to veer away from Leslie just so I can stress that Republicans and conservatives and the right will call anybody and everybody a groomer or pedo, which does nothing to combat actual crimes or criminals, but they will champion shallow causes and con men. And here's what I'm talking about. In the summer of 2023, a movie called Sound of Freedom hit theaters, starring Jim Caviezel as Tim Ballard, whose efforts to stop child sex trafficking were being glorified in this film. Social media claimed that AMC and other theater chains had intentionally denied people's tickets to Sound of Freedom, shut off air conditioning in the rooms playing the movie specifically, left theater lights on, and fire alarms were going off in order to keep people from getting that message.
People come out and complain, it's not our fault. We have to get this situated so that everybody can feel accommodated, and then we'll restart the movie, okay?
Restart the movie? Hold on.
Why is it that they really don't want us to watch The Sound of Freedom? Are pedos being defended and protected? By who? Who's they? What would we get from this message that we wouldn't get elsewhere? Was Jim Caviezel's QAnon crazy self going to get charges and convictions for landlords or bosses or billionaires or the police or anyone in power that Fox News likes? Sound of Freedom was an unexpected hit. The CEO of AMC had to address these conspiracy theories and tell people that his movie theater wasn't sabotaging itself. Angel Studios, who distributed the movie, had to acknowledge the rumors and make it clear that they weren't accurate. A co-founder of Angel Studios thanked AMC CEO. Going back to Tim Ballard, a former Trump appointee and U.S. Homeland Security agent who founded Operation Underground Railroad, or OUR, a nonprofit child rescue group whose operations supposedly liberated thousands of trafficked women and children. Well, Ballard, who inspired Sound of Freedom, was sued by 5 women alleging sexual assault. He resigned from his group when he was under investigation by an outside firm hired by OUR for allegedly coercing at least 7 women to act like wives on overseas missions, an allegation he has denied. Another man involved with Sound of Freedom and Operation Underground Railroad has been accused of sexual misconduct, this time for groping the breast of an alleged girl. It was captured on video. He got handsy. The question is, how old was she? And did she consent? Could she consent? They really don't want us to watch the Sound of Freedom. Bet. Watching donates to the cause. Proceeds from ticket sales were going to go towards OUR. Cool. As Vice News had previously reported, a number of OUR's claims about its work are dramatically overstated or without clear documentary evidence. In another story uncovered by Vice News, OUR heavily marketed its role in the rescue of Liliana, a young trafficking survivor. But Liliana rescued herself and did not meet OUR representatives until years after she'd done so, when she was preparing to testify against her traffickers in court. People who have volunteered for OUR have raised concerns that it could actually have been creating demand for trafficking victims by going to foreign countries on undercover missions that, at times, have seemed to consist of walking around to bars and sex clubs asking for underage girls. In reality, the majority of child victims of trafficking are teenagers who have been kicked out of their homes, often because they are LGBTQ+ or gender nonconforming. Most younger child victims are trafficked by parents with substance abuse problems trying to buy drugs, while most child victims are much older than the ones seen in Sound of Freedom. Republicans, conservatives, and the right only care about groomers and pedos if they can own the libs. I know this because, per experts, child trafficking is commonplace because of a lack of treatment plans for people with drug abuse issues, a lack of social safety nets for families in poverty, and a lack of support for queer and gender non-conforming youth. These reactionaries don't care about preventing harm for these already marginalized people. So, Jeffrey Epstein's victim, Virginia Giuffre, claimed that she was trafficked to Les Wexner between 3 and 10 times. Ms. Giuffre said that she was instructed by Maxwell to wear lingerie for less. When asked why she said in a previous interrogation by police that she didn't believe Wexner would say the truth, Giuffre said that it was because he had done things that were wrong. He participated in sex with minors, she said. Ghislaine Maxwell met Giuffre at Mar-a-Lago when she was around the age of 17. For what it's worth, Ms. Giuffre said that she had never seen Donald Trump engaging in any wrongdoing during her time at Epstein's home, but claimed he would have seen several disturbing photos with salacious acts of girls, young girls, doing things to each other that would be considered child pornography all around the house. Virginia Giuffre died by suicide a few months ago. She was 41. Les Wexner is still alive and well and should be. Has he ever been questioned by the FBI or interviewed by the Department of Justice? He's 87 years old now and shows no signs of slowing down. He just bought a home in Martha's Vineyard. He's made billions from AI. Les Wexner has donated to the United Way, OSU's Academic Medical Center, the Wexner Center for the Arts, along with the Columbus Foundation. And even in death, Epstein's fingerprints and signature remain on contracts, deeds, and decisions made all around here. I didn't even get to Edward Razik, Wexner's right-hand man who managed the Vicky's fashion shows. way problematic. Wexner told Vanity Fair in 2003 that Epstein was a most loyal friend who is very smart with a combination of excellent judgment and unusually high standards. 18 months after Florida authorities charged Epstein with multiple counts of molestation and unlawful sexual activity with a minor in 2006, Wexner cut ties with him. In March of 1985, Arthur Shapiro, a lawyer who reportedly personally oversaw the account for The Limited, was due to testify before a grand jury over his tax dodging and was shot twice at point-blank range in a mob-style murder that has never been solved. I need to say, allegations, 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 accusations, accusations, accusations. I'll leave you with this from Columbus Monthly. In Columbus, it's hard to reconcile these two conflicting portraits. How can the same man be so savvy and so naive, so brilliant and so blind? How could Wexner, who's avoided scandal all his life and is married to a tireless advocate for children and abused women, associate himself with someone who turned out to be of such questionable character, someone who was arrested in early July 2019 on sex trafficking charges? We may never know Victoria's Secret, but we're gonna be all right.